Hello, Johnny.
You stop.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Dad.
Hello there.
Hello.
Hello there.
How goes it all?
How are you?
Very good.
Well, thank you.
Are you on gallery view or on just little box, big
I've got
box?
you in the corner.
Oh, I've got.
Well, I only need you. You're the. Okay, I'll have a look. Gallery.
I've got the gallery view. Then we're equal size,
yeah.
which is
Equal
not particularly realistic. I know.
Well, good. I know it's not.
So you're having your dinner at 8? Is it the or 7:30?
Yes, ish. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how long you want to be, but we can be as long as you want, really.
Well, I thought it was about time that. Yeah, I thought it was about time we could get something down on tape about all these violin players that you've had to work with.
I know. I made a list. I've got. I mean, but obviously not casuals, but I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, Sven Asmundsen I only played with once, but the others are all, Darrell Way, Rick Sanders, Stephane Grappelli, Didier Lockwood, Nigel Kennedy, Johnny Van Derrick, Chris Garrick, Andy Aitchison, Mike Piggott.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got Jean-Luc Ponty?
No, I never played with him.
Ah, right. I'm going to delete him from my little list here, which is only about 8.
He's the only famous one I haven't played with.
Right. And what about the classical ones? So you played with one or two?
Oh yes, of course. Yehudi Menuhin, I forgot those. Yes,
Menuhin, and also there's that lovely player from Watford. You went on the radio with her a couple of times. I know it doesn't really amount to much, but it still counts as playing with her.
Tasmin Little.
Tasmin Little, that's it.
Yeah. So Yehudi Menuhin. Yeah, Yehudi Menuhin. I did 2 albums with him, and a load of gigs.
Shall I start this off in a kind of official way? Because then I can
start off in an official way,
and then we can carry on chatting. Okay,
yeah.
So John Etheridge, in which he doesn't talk about the guitar. Now then, I wanted to talk to you about this for ages. And on many a journey to or from work, we've done that in the car already. But here in this screen age of absolutely everyone web videoing, interviewing absolutely everybody, I thought I'd grab you to quiz you about the topic that no one else has yet. All these violin players that you've had to play with down your illustrious 50+ year career. Yeah. There are just so many, and just a few notables: Darrell Way, Rick Sanders, Stephane Grappelli, Yehudi Menuhin, Didier Lockwood, Johnny Van Derrick, Nigel Kennedy, and Tasmin Little. Now, aren't I right that these are all, or a lot of these are Capricorns, didn't you once tell me? Is there some astrological link?
Oh, no, I don't think. No, none of them are Capricorns except for... No, none of them. Not a single one.
Oh, no, Nigel is a Capricorn, isn't he?
Nigel's a Capricorn. Yeah, totally a Capricorn. Yes.
Oh, well, I don't know where I got that from. Probably another conversation.
Do you want me to go through their star signs then? Darrell Way, Sagittarius, Rick Sanders, Sagittarius, Stephane Grappelli, Aquarius, Didier Lockwood, Aquarius, Sven Asmundsen, Pisces, Nigel Kennedy, Capricorn, Johnny Van Derrick, Leo, Chris Garrick, Pisces, Andy Aitchison, Libra, Mike Piggott, Libra, Yehudi Menuhin, Taurus, and Tasmin Little, I don't know.
Is that everybody? That's absolutely incredible. There's almost. Are there any star signs that you've left out? There's no Gemini.
That's all I can. You see, that's what I remember about people. I can't remember. I was trying to remember which year I played with them, and I'm always about a year out when I try and get the year up. But I can always remember what astrological sign they were. It's pathetic. I know.
You've certainly played with
Kennedy.
Go on.
Nigel Kennedy used to go, "Oh, that Mavis shit."
Well, you've certainly.
But I just sort of.
You've certainly played with more than your fair share, but it's not just people from jazz, but from folk and classical too. I mean. What's the key to having totted up such an impressive list of violinists on your CV? I mean, what have you done to deserve it? You say it's all an accident. You didn't go out looking for all these fiddlers.
I did. But I guess after I played with Stephane Grappelli, for instance, I played with Nigel Kennedy because I played with Stephane Grappelli, definitely.
Yeah.
Because Nigel came and played with us when he was a kid, and with Grappelli. Mm-hmm. So he always kind of had me in mind for guitar things because of that. Didier Lockwood was because of Grappelli. I played on Didier Lockwood's first album with Tony Williams and Gordon Beck and Niels Pedersen. In fact, I was depping for John McLaughlin. How about that?
Right. So there's a lot of links with violin players in the same sort of similar situations, and proteges coming up, like in the case of Nigel on the Kennedy. I remember seeing a video, I think, at Ronnie Scott's of him sitting in with Grappelli, very young.
Yes, yes, that's right. That's right. That was with Icon.
But the prog rock thing is interesting too, isn't it? Rick Sanders and Darrell Way, more in the prog rock category, or folk as well. And
well, Darrell Way, that wasn't an accident. I mean, I just answered an audition for a famous name advertising for a guitar player. It turned out to be Darrell Way, who was pretty famous then because of a band called Curved Air. He just left.
So you didn't play with Curved Air, it was Wolf that you played with, wasn't it?
Darrell Way's Wolf, it was called. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I met Rick Sanders before Stephane Grappelli, because Rick Sanders came into the Soft Machine about 1976. And so I thought it was after, but I realized thinking about it that I played with him, and then I got offered this thing with Stephane Grappelli. So that was out of the blue, and really so many of those connections.
Right.
I mean, I would have probably played with you if it had. I would have probably still played with you, but then I probably wouldn't have done, because I might not have played with your dad if it hadn't been for Grappelli. You and your dad used to come to the Grappelli concerts.
Yeah.
So really, the linchpin is Grappelli. He's the one who's responsible. And of course, the Holy Menuhin, I played with him because that was the records with Stephane Grappelli. So I think if it hadn't been for Stephane Grappelli, there wouldn't be a lot of these violinists in my life.
In the first place, but so many of them you've had elongated, partnerships with over many years. So I was wondering,
we've had a pretty long elongated.
So I was thinking, is there perhaps something about your sensibility or a certain appeal you possess that make violinists swarm in your direction, or is it completely random?
How could I say, darling? I mean, who knows? But I mean, I just think if you get to play in that area, which after Grappelli, because there was a long gap actually between, I'd say, 81, 82, and well, there was Nigel Kennedy in 89, 90, 91, but there was about 10 years when I didn't play with violin.
Right.
And then, that was 10 years of freedom, and then
10 years reprieve. And then you've more than made up for it, because you started the Grappelli tribute band, and we've done loads of gigs over the last 20 years doing that. And
gigs, and
goodness knows what else, more stuff with Nigel in that period. And
lots of stuff with Nigel. I mean, and that was a very fruitful relationship in a way, because we did a lot of Hendrix stuff, and I was very happy to do that. And he's a great guy. But there again, that came around because of Grappelli. But then, of course, so much of what we did with Nigel was kind of a jazz fusion kind of thing,
right?
And which suited him very well.
Yeah. But would you say Grappelli was the linchpin in getting people together? What about pointing the finger at the person that asked you to join that band then, Diz Disley?
Is
he to blame?
He's to blame. And it was a very fortuitous thing, really, and it was very lucky, because I'd been on television with Soft Machine, and he was going down Oxford Street thinking about getting giving Ike Isaacs a heave-ho and getting in somebody young, and he bumped into a vibraphone player, Pete Shade, who I haven't seen forever.
Pete Shade,
and Pete Shade said, I saw this bloke on the telly with Soft Machine. Now, what I was doing with Soft Machine was nothing to do with Grappelli, but Pete Shade probably just, and anyway, he told Diz, so Diz phoned me up out of the blue, and then that I was complete. I didn't even own an acoustic guitar, I had to borrow an acoustic guitar and go over to Hamburg and do this audition, which I did, and then I kind of said to Diz, look, I can't really do this because I'm in the Soft Machine, and I wasn't deliberately playing hard to get, but somehow this really revved him up. And he went, oh, no, I'm offering you a job with Stephane Grappelli, and you're going to turn it down to play with a beat group? I don't believe it, you see. So he was, he said, I'm going to talk to your wife. I'm going to offer you loads of money. So, of course, luckily, I did the right thing in the end. And I went to the Soft Machine. I said, look, you haven't got many gigs in the book.
No.
Anything you have, Alan Holdsworth did them, who was the previous guitarist in the Soft Machine before me. and he came in, and they were very happy for him to do them, obviously. And so
you were away
I went
around
off
the world, weren't you? Your diary was packed for 5 years or something, wasn't it? 5 years of constant touring.
Certainly was. 5 years constant touring with Stephane all over the world. It was absolutely blissful, brilliant. We went everywhere.
Yeah.
And we always, the two guitarists always went with him, and then we pick up a bass player in whatever country we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, he you know, we were lucky. I mean, he could have. I think later on he quite often went to America and played with Bucky Pizzarelli or something. But in those days, he liked to have his two chaps with him.
Yeah.
The local bass player. So we went everywhere, all over the world, you know. And
but even though it might not have been an instinctive path for you to take, but you ended up doing it. You ended up really getting close to Grappelli and personally, but musically too, because wasn't it Django?
Yeah.
Django Reinhardt you were attracted to when you were starting playing as a teenager. I think that's right, isn't it? But not,
of course.
But Grappelli wasn't really in the frame. But then when you got to play with him, you became, you know, of a mind to love his style of playing. Playing a sumptuous ballad, for example.
Well,
you know, that kind of effort.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly did.
And so on. I was just thinking about another aspect which might be interesting to chat about. Getz was another one you always cite as a big favourite of yours. Effortless, legato-ness, something that you love and seek in all music, I think. So is there some kind of synergy with the violin as an instrument? I was thinking about it when I listened to you playing in your main bag, jazz rock, modern jazz stuff, and your trademark
I do love
legato long lines, which everybody loves.
Yes.
It occurred to me it was sort of close to how the violin works with the bow, with flying around, you know,
exactly.
sort of
and it's very interesting. It's interesting you say that because you know, Alan Holdsworth, for instance, was a good violinist, and I think he probably got the inspiration for his way of playing from the violin.
That's cool correlation.
Every note.
Yes, he was, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And he was, and he had a good instinctive touch on the violin. In fact, when in the soft machine, he played. I'm not sure it's on record, but I saw them live. He played a bit violin, and it sounded more or less like his guitar playing. You know. How
interesting! Did it ever?
It was very interesting.
Did it ever make you think, oh, maybe I'll ever go on the violin one day, or? No, you didn't fancy having a go.
Well, I did have a go on the violin.
Oh, right.
When I was about 19, and I couldn't do the vibrato, and I used to get my girlfriend, who became my wife, Bonnie. She used to hold the scroll, and I'd go blah, 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 and then she'd pull it so I could get the vibrato.
Wow, I think we've got a world first here. That's
that story of the famous singer who I won't name, who Nigel was blind, that he opened the booth and the bloke was going to get the vibrato.
Right. Yeah.
So I could play a few notes, but I couldn't do that. Well, I mean, I think I probably would have got together eventually, Chris. But when I first started playing, I couldn't get that love. That's all I wanted to do was get that marvelous vibrato.
Yes.
So she used to hang on the end of the scroll and pull it.
And
you should try it.
That's a cool thing. Of course, a lot of the jazz players that we've mentioned, Didier Lockwood specifically, and Jean-Luc Ponty is another one that you haven't added to your list yet. There's still time yet to do that. But they both don't use any or hardly any vibrato, traditional vibrato. So that's the French school of jazz violin playing in a way, post Grappelli. But another thing I wanted to bring up was this business of the physical side of playing. I remember you once saying, in quite frank terms, about the overall cultural appeal being that the guitar is played from the hip, nesting around the groin area, and it's just physically on a different plane in terms of raw sex appeal. No amount of swaying or swooping about and fiddle is going to match that. So
that's right. Of course, you are a bit neutered in the hot club environment because I'm sitting in a chair. But I know there's some great stories about. For instance, a friend of mine was playing with Robert Plant, Doug Boyle, and he was playing up there, and they said, no, mate, you've got to have the guitar down by your crutch.
Yeah, right. It's got to look right.
Yeah, otherwise you're sacked. So, in fact, if you do playing down there, it's very hard to play anything that's got any kind of brain in it at all. It's all kind of, vibe down there. But of course, it does yeah, because that never kind of quite cuts it as kind of. I'm afraid. Sorry.
I've been trying for years. I think that's the point of me mentioning.
Well, what Nigel used to do. Nigel used to do that with you know, you can do it. He used to play pizzicato down there, you know, like a guitarist, plink, 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 plink.
Yeah, but that's why we you know, go chasing around the likes of yourself, so we don't have to. You can do all that fancy stuff now. Things I always wanted to play.
You've got to face it, Chris. Guitar rules.
I always wanted to play something hit like a guitar or the drums bit. Yeah. But the thing is, when I first saw you play over 40 odd years ago, it is now, around the age of 8, sitting agog at your fret wizardry and the shock of curly hair, absolutely infectious. I think it's your uniqueness that's the key that attracts them all to you, and your complete unprejudiced attitude to musical genres, instruments, or people. I mean, you're up for playing anything. It's the energy you're in it for, and the energy generated when music making amongst folk. So I think that's what I think is the reason behind also the longevity of a lot of these, you know, violin playing projects you've had. You probably still, yeah. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I certainly do feel that. Yeah, I mean, you know, so often in jazz, people get a way of playing and they stick to it through thick and thin. You know, and in a way, that's got its strength, because as soon as you hear 2 notes, you recognise them immediately. But I've always been interested in so much stuff, and this shows up with these violinists. So there's so many different styles from these violinists, and I've always enjoyed trying to fit with them. And you know, that's just been my general musical thing. It's just, thanks to the Grappelli thing. I mean, I really didn't have any experience in that at all, and I could have easily just gone, oh, I can't do that. I haven't even got the guitar. But I went, no, let's go for it. And same thing when I started playing with John Williams, which I've been doing for, I know he's not a violinist, we're mentioning guitarists here, but I've been playing with John for 20 years. And when he first approached me, I thought, oh God, I can't play with John Williams. I you know, doesn't he realise I can't even read properly, you know? But you go along with it, and you get into it, and you just take the plunge. And so this list of violinists, all very different. You know, you and Menuhin and Nigel Kennedy and Rick Sanders are all incredibly different. But you know, I've enjoyed playing with you all because it's all different areas, you know.
So which was the first one that you played with? Darrell Way? No, someone else.
Darrell Way. So
Darrell Way was the very first.
Darrell Way was absolutely the first, yeah.
And is there?
And he was pretty good.
Say it again.
He was really good. He had this thing called Vivaldi, which he did with the tape machine, and it was very effective. It was really, and Eddie Jobson apparently learnt it. He didn't realise it was a tape echo, so he learnt the whole thing acoustic. And that's how Eddie Jobson got started, because he came and played that to Darrell Way, and Darrell went, "What? That's unbelievable!"
So that the technology was done with
what?
The actual tech was called Vivaldi.
No. He played a tune he called Vivaldi, which was based on a kind of Vivaldi type riffs.
I see.
And he went off into this solo, which incorporated all these repeats, which were done on the desk. Yes. So the repeats were like, you know, and Eddie Jobson learnt them all as if they were played on the violin.
Yeah. I mean, I was listening to a bit of Wolf last night, and he's got a pretty notable vibrato, actually. Darrell Way, really quite classical approach to vibrato.
Yes, I think that's probably true. Yeah,
to the way Didier and Jean-Luc approach it.
I mean, well, Darrell wasn't jazz. He was a classical rock guy, which in those days was a very good meld, because it worked with prog rock. People like Rick Wakeman, who were classically trained, they found it very easy to do rock. But they didn't have the jazz feel. You know, Didier Lockwood, for instance, is a proper jazz musician, you know, which Darrell would never. Well, he played nice solos, Darrell. You know, I listen to it occasionally, the Wolf stuff, and he's pretty good, actually.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What about, for sure. I was going to ask you about the maybe final question. What about the accompanying role? I mean, in all these situations, there's a lot of the time you're spending actually just accompanying the fiddle player. So, but musically speaking, before we get on to the ins and outs of the, you know, working challenges. But what's it like musically, as suppose contrasted, say, with voice, sax, or another guitar? Is there anything you do differently, or is there anything specifically unique about accompanying a violin player? I mean, after all, you've had all the experience.
I wouldn't say there's anything particularly different from, say, accompanying a singers. I think are more difficult because, you know, if I play with you or a sax player, you're kind of confident of your notes, and you're you know, quite often playing with a singer, you've got to be really careful with your voicings so that you don't put them off.
Right.
You don't put them off with your voicings. So I find I don't think there's really and of course, you see, the guitar, we always forget, every jazz guitarist, every twiddly guitarist forgets that really the guitar is an accompanying instrument, which the violin definitely isn't. So really the role of the guitar is a good 50 or 60% trying to be a decent accompanist, you know. And depending on the area, I mean, if we're doing this, if you talk about the hot club area, which we do, I mean, you know, I'll call it an area because we don't try and be hot club. But you know, if you've got the rhythm guitar going chugga 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 chugga, you're accompanying with the violin. It's just if you listen to Django, he just takes a poke, doesn't he? He goes rah 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 when Stephane's soloing.
It's like a drummer, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly. It's like fills. It's like fills. It's like the rhythm guitar is playing like, and the Django's playing the fills. Rah, 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 rah. which gets, you know, presumably gets the violinist going. I mean, I when I listen, sometimes I think Django sounds quite intrusive on Steph's solos. I think actually I'm not sure that Stephen liked it because he didn't encourage us to do that when he was soloing.
Right.
And of course it's all about interaction with the person.
Yeah.
He didn't like a lot of interaction.
No.
He wanted just a bed of accompaniment.
Well,
but he was very
Grappelli, yeah, he was often heard saying that if he could pick, he would play with a pianist as opposed to a guitarist, wouldn't he? And I suppose because he was a pianist as well, partly.
Yes, and he was very picky about the chords. You know, he would absolutely he'd pick you up on your accompanying chords very much. He was very attuned to that. And
any of the other violin players like that?
You know, in fact, the very first time. Yeah, I think he was probably the most picky. I mean, you know, you all hear everything. You know, you've all got great ears. Nigel hears everything, but he's more like. Well, he was pretty picky as well. You know, no sevenths. You know, you play a seventh, you go no sevenths. You know, so it's really. You know, I mean, but your original question, is it different from accompanying other people? I don't think so. I don't think it is really. And I say if I'm doing a duo with you or doing a duo with Nigel or doing a duo with Vimala singing, I mean, I did quite a lot of duets with Nigel, and those, like with you, are very improvisational. And because of the ear situation, we could take it anywhere, you know. Whereas if I'm accompanying a singer, as I said before, you know, I'm really, really conscious of really, really concentrating. See, if I played a wrong chord behind Stephan, it didn't put him off, it just annoyed him. In fact, the very first interview I ever saw with Stephane Grappelli when I was about 15, when I was into Django and him, obviously, and he came on television, and the interviewer said, "Oh, and you played with one of the world's greatest guitarists ever, Django Reinhardt." He said, "Yes. He was very good. He never played a wrong chord behind me." I thought, that's an odd compliment. He never played a wrong chord behind me.
Wonderful compliment.
Yeah, exactly. And it was very, I thought, that's weird. And of course, when I met him, I realized that that's how he valued a guitarist. He really liked Ike Isaacs for that reason.
Right.
I learned pretty quickly, you know, but initially when I joined, Diz did a lot of the a cappella stuff because he was very knowledgeable with standards. I really wasn't fully I won't say I wasn't up to it, but I wasn't really fully educated enough in the jazz world, it was lucky there were 2 guitars. If it had just been me and Stephane Grappelli and a violinist, at that time I'd have been struggling a bit, because my jazz chops were not the actual physical chops. I had all the speed and technique, but my knowledge of jazz was kind of basic. I mean, I knew the Django stuff, but you know, if he said, let's do you know, I'm old fashioned or something, I'd be going, oh, hang on, Jesus, how does that go? Whereas Diz knew all the, so I could just cop off Diz. I used my ears and played off Diz.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly how it's done for anyone, I guess, isn't it? You crib as you go. You ear hole it. Well, that's amazing to talk about your journey through violin players of your life, and to be one of them has been an absolute privilege. And we've got a few gigs coming up in the autumn.
It's been great playing with you these years. I reckon it's 96 we started with the Almost Acoustic Trio. I mean, I knew you before, but we started playing regularly in 1996. So that's quite a long period, man. And congratulations on your birthday.
We're notching them up. Yeah, the Almost Acoustic Trio. Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
I don't know why we didn't call it the Completely Acoustic Trio. It was really, wasn't it?
No, I was playing electric guitar.
Ah, well, a very cleverly disguised electric guitar.
Yeah, a jazz electric guitar. But I mean, it wasn't until we formed Sweet Chorus, the first Sweet Chorus gig I did on a sort of hollow-bodied electric jazz guitar.
Of course, we didn't have drums.
Went fully acoustic.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have, no drums. So it was you, me, and Malcolm Crease. It's the Almost Acoustic Trio, 1996.
And then after that, you started your Sweet Chorus Grappelli tribute, and we've never really ceased that one. That was 98.
Yeah, I did. No. 98,
98, that started.
98, isn't that amazing?
And then we
March 98. So 23 years old.
The duo was sort of a tandem kind of thing, wasn't it, along through the same period? Yeah.
And we've done 3 duo albums. I think the first was 06, I think, or 05. We did the first duo album. Yeah. So it's the same. It's the sort of the commando unit and the full brigade.
A splinter group. Little splinter.
Yeah, exactly. The rhythm section, they should form, rhythm guitar and bass and go out together.
Maybe a last question on the subject of the violin players. It's strictly speaking violin players interview, right? So are there any violin players, dead or alive, that if you could choose one that you haven't played with, who would it be that you play with? Is there one?
Well, I obviously Ponte, I think, would be the one, wouldn't he? He'd be the one I think of that I haven't played with.
Well, I can put you in touch.
Yeah. I mean, I think I play. Obviously there must be some, great young violinists around. Are there? You should know.
A lot coming up in London for sure.
Yeah. Bet.
Where I'm teaching at the Royal College, the Academy, and the Guildhall. Loads of promise. Yeah,
I bet.
Amazing compared to even 10 years ago, but certainly 30 years ago when I was a student there. We were very, very thin on the ground, but now we're really hot on the heels of the colleges in the States, which have been ahead for a long time in terms of jazz, strings in jazz as an idiom, as its own sort of main topic. Yeah, the States have been ahead for so long.
Yeah, it's still quite rare, isn't it?
Oh yeah, compared to saxes and guitars and everything, of course it is. Yeah, but I mean that's because it's forever going to be a slightly non-mainstream jazz instrument. I think it's always seen as a bit of a novelty instrument in jazz for various reasons. I mean, I guess it's steeped in classical music and folk music so deeply that it's a hard one to shake off. But I think more and more as time goes by, you can pick out the key players over the last 100 years quite quickly. Your Stuff Smiths and your Stephane Grappellis, and there are a lot of French ones actually, Didier and Jean-Luc. And then there's all the blues players in the States, but they never nearly approach the numbers of, the guitars and the saxes. The language isn't created on the strings; it's other instruments usually, except for exceptions like Grappelli and Venuti.
Yeah, you have to say that it's also the same on guitar and jazz. I mean, the language is created on the saxophone basically, and it's translated in. I mean, I've been listening to a lot of Jimmy Rayney recently, jazz guitarist from the 50s. But I think one of the things about violin is it's bloody hard, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
it's worth stressing how hard.
Yeah, it's really hard to play great violin, and that's why there's so few of you. And whereas I have to say, I mean, I get into trouble for saying this, but the saxophone, you've got to have it in there and there. You've got to be really musical, but the channel is not that difficult, whereas the violin channel itself is really hard. Really hard.
Yeah.
Violin trumpet.
Certainly more technical obstacles, hurdles with starting out in violin, I think, with no frets, this constricted position. But having never tried a reed instrument myself, I couldn't really compare.
Yeah, well, I did. I used to play saxophone. I'll tell you what happened. I was trying to play all these lines on guitar when I was a teenager because I loved the sound of, well, as you say, Grappelli and obviously Jenkins, but also Stan Getz and all this stuff. And I wanted to play like this. And finally, I got a saxophone. And even though what I was playing was rubbish, I found I could go. I was going, wow, this is fantastic.
So why don't you teach it?
Gibberish what I was playing, but I was, I found I could do sort of, I could get nearly to the noise that I was trying to get out of the guitar quite quickly, because it doesn't come naturally on the guitar. That kind of thing. What comes naturally on the guitar is chords and accompaniment, because that's what the guitar actually is.
Right.
So when you try things, we're in a way trying to imitate you guys, violinists and saxophone players.
Well, going back to what you said about Alan Holdsworth being a violin player as well, what do you think dissuaded him or made him decide perhaps to give the guitar priority? Was it the cultural appeal, or did he just prefer it for other reasons? Or
I'm not sure, but I think the whole thing, you've got to remember, particularly in the late 60s, early 70s, I mean, there was such a guitar culture. I mean, it was massive.
Environment,
massive. I mean, that was the instrument that was, I mean, really, I mean, still, guitar is still quite a big deal. But in that period, between 1965, if you think of, really 1961, 62, Hank Marvin, right up until the end of the mid 70s, guitar was absolutely, till punk, really, guitar was it. And this old the guitar hero thing was big news. It was a big deal. It wasn't just some little sideshow. If you were Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton or Jeff Beck or something, this was a big deal. So, I mean, I think I presume he probably played violin and guitar probably starting at the same time. But I think you just naturally in that era gravitate to the guitar because it was
when you put it like that, it's a nonsensical idea that he might have stuck with violin as a first instrument.
Exactly.
Even if he was pretty good at it.
I mean, and also, I mean, violin Darrell Way had that cachet, but there weren't many like him,
No.
And the thing with Darrell Way, when we joined, the Mahavishnu Orchestra had just come out.
Yeah.
So the way it was playing.
Yeah, Jerry Goodman, of course, with Mahavishnu.
Jerry Goodman, yes, great player.
Yeah.
Bumped into him the other day in Chicago, and he was playing with a band and sounded fantastic. He's great on this record.
Wow.
Jerry Goodman was something. He really was. But Darrell.
Yeah, he was on a tape that I got when I was like 5. Mahavishnu and Jerry Goodman and McLaughlin on one half.
Yeah.
The other the B side was a bit of the Hot Club de France, and I used to listen to the side of Mahavishnu at 10 o'clock, and then at 11 o'clock I turn it over and listen to that was one of my very first initiations. And so Jerry Goodman were the first two. Well,
there you go. That's not bad, is it? I mean, that gets you going.
Well, that was Dad's whole ethos. He's I'm really going to get these ones into music if wild horses aren't going to stop me, kind of thing. So that was his.
Well, that's great. You're lucky, because that's really good. Because I mean, all that stuff
turns out
that he made you do has turned out really good. I mean, I think in that sense, your dad getting you to do all that stuff is brilliant. It's like Nigel kind of used to moan about the menu in school, but I'd look at him and think, considering what he can do compared to what I can do, completely self-taught and just did it for fun. You know, you just take for granted, you guys take for granted like reading anything and all this because you were forced to do it when you were young. I mean, you know, I used to play a bit of piano, but then I made my parents give it up. So I took up the guitar when I was 12, 13, and it was my teenage kind of pulling girl sort of thing, you know.
But
And
all those players that you listed just a moment ago, Holdsworth, Jeff Beck, Clapton, and
yeah, all self-taught.
You're all self-taught, aren't you? None of you are trained in college in academic music or reading.
Yeah, well, you couldn't. There weren't any guitar lessons to be had unless you wanted to do classical. At my school, there was a classical guitar teacher, but I wasn't interested in classical guitar at all, so I didn't go. But you know, really was nobody to teach you. So you just learned by watching, listening to records, copying people. You know, really watching as much as anything. You go to a gig and just glued to what the guitar player was doing and see what he was up to. And
well, I was one of those people when I saw that one particular group Dad had in the late 70s and seeing you for the first time. I didn't want to hear anybody else in the band. I think it was Guy Barker, Phil Todd, probably Jeff Klein, and probably Alan Cox on drums, and yourself. And I was just like, when's the next guitar solo going to happen? Come on, let's have a guitar solo.
It is the it's the power of the guitar, isn't it? I mean, it's an amazing thing. I've just been listening to all these old Jeff Beck solos from the 60s, and because I remember when they were absolutely, and how fresh that was at the time. Still sounds great, you know. There's something about, you know, the electric guitar particularly, acoustic guitar obviously, but I mean, I don't think that what we call the standard jazz guitar really does this, but that electric guitar that was sort of invented around the Clapton time in the 60s, I mean, it's really something. It really affects people, you know. It really
we started out saying that we weren't going to talk about guitar. Look what's happened.
Oh, sorry. Let's talk about violin. Violin.
Yeah, we've done plenty of that. I think I'm going to sign off and go and have my chicken dinner. And see you very soon for some more gigs, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I got an invitation for my first jab yesterday, so I'll be all
well done. Because congratulations on your birthday, by the way.
Oh, that's too kind of you. Thank you very much. All right, man. Catch you again soon.
See you then.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.